companies maybe get a little bit outside of what they're great at and start doing a lot of things that they're potentially good at, and that starts creating issues. Is you start to lose your focus, lose your pitch, lose what's the thing that's special about you when you start doing things that are just outside of your scope, right? I think I run into that pretty often is where someone's telling me the 100 things their product does, but it probably doesn't do 100 things very well. It only does 5 of those things very well. So why are you pushing these 95 other things that your product can do? I think you should focus on the thing that works well. That's one thing we talk about a lot in our conversations is finding the thing you do well and sticking to that thing. And then adding things later is definitely possible, but I definitely think you have to get your client base in place for that thing you do well before you can start doing other things.
And how you help the industry.
Sure, sure. I mean, yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I mean, it's always fun to be able to come on and talk with like-minded individuals about hotel tech. Yeah, I mean, I started my company about I don't know a year and a half or so ago to help a lot of the technology startups in the industry kind of have a little bit more of a push to kind of make their way into hotels and try to find some innovative solutions that aren't well adopted and kind of help those solutions kind of drive more as far as getting in front of hotels and kind of having an opportunity creating like a marketplace of solutions of best in class things to try to help guests. So excited to talk a lot about the future of hotel tech.
Yeah, I was gonna say hotels are notoriously bad at adopting new technology. Like, how have you overcome some of those hurdles and getting people actually bring technology in to the forefront of their minds?
Yeah, I mean, we try to be a little bit more consultative than salesy when it comes to what we're doing. So I mean, we're helping by setting the table and kind of talking about the positives of these solutions and how they kind of solve different problems around properties, and whether that's compliance issues or if it's operational issues, things to help staff, things to help guests, things to help drive revenue, set the table for the hotels. Really, it's not an industry where you can force things down people's throat. They'll adopt them over time. So it's more about getting information in people's hands and hoping that things will come your way. It's a numbers game, obviously, in the hotel industry. It's slow to adopt, like you said. So the more things you can do in person, more things you can get in front of people's faces, the more likely more solutions will start being adopted, and it just helps the industry as a whole as we kind of do
Well,
that.
and to your point, Chris, over the past, I started in early 2000s, and from that time period till now, there's a different, totally different barrage of options. When I started in the industry, the number one and number two were the beginning of wireless internet with 802.11b standard. We're getting 11 megabytes a second, and
Yep.
standard definition linear television. And maybe some pay-per-view action. But other than that, that was really the meat and potatoes of the technology in the industry. Fast
Yeah.
forward 20 years, I look now, there's technology for every single facet of the operation.
For sure. I mean, and not everything is going to be good for every property. I think that's one of the things that is good to have someone who's got a lot working with a lot of different tools like me, because that allows for me to kind of understand the fits a little bit better with each individual property. Because I think sometimes, no offense to the hotel tech companies, but everybody thinks they're a perfect, product for every company, and I don't think that always is the case. Because every operation is going to be a little bit different, and there's so many things out there today that you can be doing. What should you be doing is really the question, not what is possible is a lot. What
Exactly.
should you
And
be doing is
if
different.
I'm focusing on running my operation, I might not have time to vet or even think about, well, is that a good fit? I'm busy, boots on the ground running the operation. So to be able to have
Right.
someone to lean on and say, hey, is this good? No, maybe this isn't good, but I got something else that's better for you. So I think that's important for sure.
It's funny that
Totally.
you mentioned that hotels are so slow to adopt, but technology as a sector moves so fast. So you're kind of working on both ends of that spectrum there, where you've got to find solutions in an industry that moves pretty slow. And I'm sure that you're always picking up new solutions, especially with today how AI is ramping up so spectacularly quickly. How do you like go through your selection process on your end to decide like, you've got to undergo some sort of evaluation to decide which
Sure.
products you want to be recommending for some of these hotels. What does that look like on your side of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a it's definitely a process because I think when you first, at least when I first started, and this only a year and a half of time, so it's not even that long. It takes a little bit to say no, and realize, hey, maybe this isn't a solution that I can correlate to the audience that I'm reaching out to, and maybe I can't position this the way that maybe they believe that it's positioning. I think one of the things I like to do is I try to find something best in class with the product. I want to make sure it's in a vertical that I don't already have something, and that the solution is something best in class, whether that's some kind of feature set, some kind of advanced level of technology like AI or something like that that's helping them be a little bit more kind of on the front foot, or maybe it's a price point that makes more sense, or a who they're targeting is who where it makes sense. So I mean, you have to kind of look at each solution individually and kind of determine what's that best in class value that this solution has. I think it if you don't have that, then you're not going to make any noise with the product.
That
Now,
makes sense.
I would say, Chris, we've been working together now for about a year. Would you say?
Correct. Yeah.
Uh, it's been a pleasure. One, but so we're safety and security. Um, do you want to talk about like some of the companies that you work with, what they do for hospitality? Some of the ones that have had success, all that good stuff.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, I try to keep things in a few different buckets. I mean, my three things I think the industry is leaning towards are driving revenue in a not only direct way to the hotel, but ancillary way, through different pieces. I think about it from a staff and guest perspective. Does this make the staff's life easier, the guest's life easier? And then operationally, where are we skipping some of the mundane tasks or things that could be easily automated through tech? So right now I have solutions, things like cashless tipping, help with getting your team a little bit more as far as tips in their pockets when today nobody's carrying cash, everyone's got
Mm.
tap to pay with their phone, their credit card, and cash is really kind of becoming a little bit more obsolete. Solutions that help with convenience store checkouts, placing items on a kiosk that has AI mounted cameras that can automate and pick up all the different items that you're placing on the checkout kiosk before you don't have to scan, you don't have to do any of these things. So it kind of simplifies that that checkout process all the way down to like your ID scanners for the front desk that take information from the ID, plug it into the PMS, make sure that that person hasn't previously been banned from your property, those kind of things. So it's a little bit of everything that we're trying to do on our side. And like I said, individual properties may have different things that kind of meet their needs. Some properties may have problems with guests that, hey, we have repeat offenders. Some, may be looking for ways to add a little bit of ancillary revenue to, to drive more as far as profitability to the property. We try to align with different things that kind of help in different areas.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique spot that you fill because you're not a sales representative for that product. You're a consultant that's, helping out these hotels to meet the need that they're looking for. It kind of gives you that third party perspective, and maybe builds a little bit more trust and rapport between you and hotels, because you're not necessarily attached to the product itself, and you're not going to lie to them. You're not going to sell them something that's not going to help them out. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's been the goal. I mean, it's one of those things where, again, it's kind of like walking the horse to the well. You just kind of have to let them take the step,
Well, it's kind of a
be more
new
consultative.
a newer venture for you too. I know you mentioned that you've been doing it for just over a year now. What kind of motivated you to move from that business relationship, um, as a sales representative almost side of things, to
Mhm.
transition to your own thing? What motivated that, and how did you finally come to that decision and get this kicked off?
Yeah, I mean, I was working at a technology startup in the hotel space, and I was actually a product that was competing with Yaz and Terry on the panic button side. And what I found was that I had to be more salesy. I had to be in people's inboxes, following up 3, 4 times a week, calling and doing these things. It was hard to be kind of consultative, and it was kind of hard to really move the needle with the product. So what I've found is that it's been a little bit nicer to be in a position where I could be more suggestion oriented. Hey, if you're having this problem, this product solves that problem for you, and kind of be more recommendation based than being sales based, where you're kind of held to a quota and you're held to these things that make it a little bit more difficult to be um, moving the needle for hotels that may have something that's a need, but it's outside of that one product that I'm selling. I can help them in other areas, so it's been a little bit more on my side, a little bit more fun because I can switch between things. I'm not stuck to selling, what one product. We can talk about one thing and then jump to something completely different, and even talk about things outside of who I'm working with. And we help doing those things as far as research and coming back with options for those hotels.
Yeah, it's a workflow that I'm very familiar with on that sales side of things, because you can almost feel annoying sometimes to your clients. Like, you're always following up, like you're saying, multiple times per week. And kind of, you always want to find the right client for what you're selling. But
Right.
on the sales side of things, a lot of the time is the people that are most excited to hear about what you have to offer are also actually trying to sell you something too. So they're happy to have those conversations, because really they're trying to open the door into your organization. And you've got to kind of be careful on how to manage those relationships. And that's probably something that you're not experiencing as often now that you're on the consultant side, because you can you're really working primarily with hotels at this point. So there's really not much that they can do for you. You're the servicer, you're going to provide that product for them. I was interested to hear your perspective on it's the big topic for 2025 is artificial intelligence, AI. I don't know if
Mhm.
anybody's heard about this yet, but AI is coming.
Tell me more
Um,
about it.
Sam Sam Altman recently came out and said that he believes that they are closer than ever to artificial general intelligence and AGI, and that'll be coming this year from OpenAI. Um, you've worked in your history on a lot of technology products and companies, and I'm sure that that's something that you're very interested in. You're probably following pretty closely, and you've also got this hospitality background. Where do you see AI challenging the hotel industry the most, and where do you see it really emerging to benefit both hotels and guests?
Yeah, I mean, I think the word AI kind of gets thrown around a lot when really I think hotels are at the stage of automation, not really at the stage of actual artificial intelligence, right? I think we're in the place of automating tasks, not really taking data, having an AI, look through that data and come up with ways of kind of automating things. I think it's more automating tasks that we're in. So I think we're probably in our industry still 4 or 5 years away before there's things. I've seen some companies who do some stuff on the AI side where that, but it's mostly like guest response stuff, right? Where you're picking up the phone, you're talking to a voice bot that's going to be able to answer all your questions and do those things because that's the level that we're kind of at. But I think um, it'll probably be a few years before any of the tools that we probably play with on a day-to-day basis just by jumping into ChatGPT, going into some of these things before those are kind of more prevalent. I think we're still at the stage where the mundane tasks need to be automated through technology before we'll get to the next stage, which is artificial intelligence. So uh, we're probably a couple years away, but it is interesting to see how fast things are moving. It's like you know we're in light speed right now. Now that there's more users in there, and they're just gaining so much more data on how to be better and learn from kind of all what we're all doing. And Apple releases a new AI product every other day now, it seems, and with OpenAI is doing a ton. It's gonna be a cool little period of time over the next few years, I think, from a technology point of view. I don't know if the world will catch up to that anytime soon, but at least from a outside of hotels, personal perspective, there's going to be some cool stuff that comes.
Yeah, one thing that I've been worried about is that AI on the job replacement side. An AI agent might be able to do the job of a sales coordinator very easily, or maybe someday even a guest services representative if you've got a kiosk
Mhm.
where guests are able to check in at a kiosk. It might add a level of customer service if it's an AI that they're interacting with as opposed to a computer program, which an
Mhm.
AI also is. Um, but how do you train somebody to be a group sales manager if they're not able to have that first step first as a guest services agent or a sales coordinator? They're not able to climb that ladder into the positions that will give them the experience. So it really becomes a risk for hotels to adopt these technologies, because later down the line, they're not going to be able to have the skilled and experienced talent making those sales decisions that would otherwise be there.
No, I mean, most definitely. I think the one good thing about the hospitality industry is face to face is kind of the bread and butter, right? I mean, if business travel isn't happening, obviously the industry takes a dip. If there's, uh, I think from a hotel sales perspective, I think one of the I used to work in the corporate travel space for a long time, so I think one of the main things that helped those reps sell was going out, meeting with travel agencies, doing face to face things, doing site inspections where people come and visit the property. So I think there's always going to be that level of in person that needs to be there. AI might help you open the door, like might get you an email response that comes in, and might even be able to help you set a meeting or set a site inspection. But there's always going to be that need for that person to be there to kind of close the door. So I mean, I'm hoping that AI, I'm mostly from a sales capacity on my side, right? I'm helping kind of products with their go to market push and kind of get out there. I mean, I do it more consultative, obviously, but at the end of the day, I have to be able to adapt to these kind of things too. I think we'll all end up having to adapt in some way. Hopefully, it just makes our jobs a little bit easier, so we're not sitting there spending time doing things that AI can do for us, and we can do the things like this face to face that kind of make things a little bit more meaningful. I think we're all kind of we've hit this period where phones are so important, right? Screen time and all these things. I'm hoping that this gets rid of some of that screen time and we can get back to more in person stuff because technology kind of took over some of our day to day lives from some point. Computers, phones, the whole thing. Maybe if there's more automation, more AI, we can move back to more in person, face to face stuff.
Well,
Yeah,
I agree. You make a very good point, Chris. The fact that even if you have AI automate 80% of the job and it's hitting the exact rates that it thinks it can get without overcharging, even if you have the best metrics and the best AI, it's all about relationships, in my opinion. Especially those sales relationships. I want to buy. I like spending my money with people and places that I agree with and like to do business with. If they're very friendly, why I like to do business with people like that, as opposed to dealing with an AI. You might not get that same warm fuzzy feeling, and you might just feel kind of like a number, or in the system, as opposed to face to face with a sales manager. Well, I like this guy. I know he reps his product well. I respect the product. I think it's suitable for me, as
Yeah.
opposed to AI. I don't know if I'm going to get that same experience.
Mhm.
it really I'm hoping that AI and automation are more on the systems and kind of like paperwork side of things, where it kind of gets rid of all the things that you don't want to be doing in your day, and then it frees up time for agents and sales managers and all the rest to be doing more of the boots on the ground stuff, being able to actually get out there and develop those relationships. And hopefully the people that they're working with have the same thing going on, where their background stuff, their personal AI agent secretary is handling all the back end stuff. One of my least favorite parts of my day is having to log or track things, as a sales manager, because it's important for the company to know that things are being logged. But at the same time, it's time that I believe I can be selling. So it's always this push and pull between management and the team, that hopefully AI can solve for and just kind of eliminate outright.
Yep.
Totally.
I couldn't agree more with all of you guys. Honestly, I really think the AI, as good as it is, if you ever get rid of the human touch when it comes to hospitality, it's not hospitality anymore. So, I mean, service is service at the end of the day. People go places to, have comfortable accommodations. It's a bed, it's a bathroom, it's all that good stuff. But I feel that the people that are within those hotels are what create those memorable moments and that loyalty too. Like there can be one specific person that you come across in your travels that makes you loyal to a brand because of how they handled a situation that you dealt with while staying with them. So, yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head.
So,
Yeah.
Chris, just kind of turning this conversation then a little bit, because I think that we've covered the AI topic pretty thoroughly. One way that Yaz, and this is kind of what's making me think this, hotels are a bed, a bathroom, a comfortable accommodation. So hotels need to learn how to stand out a little bit in order to capture more guests on a technology side, especially. Guests are looking for those technologically driven experiences. And hotels are looking for more ways to monetize their amenities, and build in ways that guests can have fuller experiences while they're with them. What are some things that guests can expect in the coming years? Give it 3 to 5 years. And what are some of the things that hotels can do to drive this need that's right there in the middle between these factors?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tell this to companies all the time. Every solution for the hospitality space has to have some tie back to how it's going to help the guest experience in some capacity. I think that if that's speeding up the check-in process, or it's making it easier to request things from the room, that you can order room service, you can get those extra pillows you need, or whatever it may be. All the tech in some way has to tie back to delivering to the guest, even if it's a staff-based product and it's something that is helping the staff. If it's helping free up time, that time needs to be spent with the guest, right, and helping with the experience. I just think that we call it the hospitality space, hospitality for a reason. And I think if we're not doing that, so I think over the next 3 5 years, it's going to be about customizing things a little bit more individually for each guest, making their experience a little bit more personalized, which we're kind of heading in that direction. But I think there's a lot more things that we can do, from pre-check-in, things that you can kind of capture from the guest, to specialized, things that can come out after you've stayed with the property based on kind of what you did while you were there. And I think we're kind of heading in that direction. But like I said, I think if there's not kind of a guest focus, no matter what the tech is, I think you're kind of missing the point of what we're all trying to do as guests. First of all, you want the technology to make it so my check-in time is faster, or my response time is faster. You don't want things in place that just don't move the needle for that side of it. And then on the technology side of it, I think we all have to think about it from that perspective too, that no matter what we're doing, we got to be moving that needle towards the better guest experience, because people have so many options today, right? We're popping up new hotels, left and right, and it makes sense. I mean, we're growing as far as what people are trying to get out, and they're trying to experience the world, and we're the way that people do that. So we just have to find that happy medium between how it works to help internally and provide that big jump for the guests,
Yeah.
front facing.
You're absolutely right, and I think it's a guest expectation thing that's changing so rapidly, and at the same time, as we've mentioned at the start, hotels change so slowly.
Yeah.
So your guest expectations are rising, and especially when it comes to even something as simple as having a piece of information that before you could tell a guest, hey, the shuttle comes every 15 minutes. And the guest just has to trust that the shuttle is going to come in 15 minutes and that
Mhm.
they're going to be heading to the airport shortly thereafter. But we've become so accustomed with Uber and Lyft and Waymo and all these other app services where you check your phone, you see exactly where your driver is and how many minutes away they are. That's
Mhm.
that's an expectation that's coming from an external source. We're now having something that's set in our minds as something that should happen, and then when you go to this hotel and the front desk agent tells you that the shuttle will be there in about 15 minutes, now the guest is like, well, when is the shuttle coming? I'm just going to order an Uber because I don't have
Mhm.
that information and I'm frustrated.
Yep.
This thing that was normal before has suddenly become a friction point. And that's just fascinating how the culture changes due to the technology that we're so accustomed to in our day to day lives.
Yeah, I mean, you have everything at your fingertips on your phone, right? I mean, it's a computer in your hand. I mean, it's it's everything that you would possibly need in one place. So, yeah, I mean, I think the direction you're right, especially with things like that. I mean, simple things like where's the shuttle, having a solution to be able to see and track that shuttle in real time gives you that sense of relief, right? I mean, how many times have you called and asked where the vehicle is? They tell you to be there in 15 minutes. It's been 20. So now you're going, is that vehicle actually coming? And you're having that thought in your head, and it just ends up taking it out on the shuttle driver and then on the front desk associate who's had no interaction at this point. They're just taking the brunt of the anger of the person who had to wait for a little bit longer than expected for a shuttle. So yeah, I mean
I
it.
literally had that same experience happen to me earlier this year. It was an early morning flight. Shuttle was supposed to be there at 6. Guy, the schedule was a little bit delayed. He should be there. It was 6:05. Finally, I didn't want to risk missing my flight. I pulled up one of the apps. I saw it was 8 minutes. I could be right at the airport. I hit accept. I didn't want to have to worry at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's a guest information piece. It's the technology is providing information to you real time, and hotels can capture that if they just decide to step up. It's just right there, right for the taking.
Mhm.
And it takes that initiative for them to decide to upgrade and modernize a little bit, and that'll show up all over the place within a hotel with some of the solutions that I know that Chris offers. I mean, that was the first one that I noticed was Track My Shuttle, and I realized like that's just seems like a no brainer.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things, and I try to work with mostly things that are on the low cost end. So, the little things that you could do that just improve the guest experience from every touch point. Arriving at the airport, knowing when that shuttle is going to be there to pick you up. Do I have time to run to the bathroom real quick, or is the shuttle here? If I miss it here, where's the next shuttle? Those kind of things are difficult. When you don't have that information at your fingertips. I think you're right. Like Uber, Lyft, and all these tools make it so easy for you to see and track. And all right, I have this amount of time. This is when my car will be here. If you're not doing it for other things, it's just it's the same piece. So, I mean, and again, it's every touch point in the hotel. I mean, you're in your room and you want you want additional towels, you want things. Do you really want to pick up the phone and interact with the front desk person or call housekeeping to get those things, or text a number that says, hey, if I could get extra towels, that would be great, and towels are delivered to you, and you didn't have to pick up the phone to do it. Those things are simple tools to put in place to make it easier on the guests, easier on your staff, because now you're not sticky noting things around to try to remember what you need to do. And you have a task list that is automated through these systems, so it makes it easier for everybody on both ends. So you're not missing out, and I'm sitting there 30 minutes later calling like, hey, did someone get my request for towels? You
It's,
have that confirmation. Someone texts you back, hey, yeah, we'll deliver that, and you have that ability to check in. as well. So it's all
It's on
around.
one of the 20 sticky notes. Hold on now. It'll be right there. Give me a moment. You literally brought me back to like my operations and seeing because every front desk agent's different. And I recall those folks that were like sticky note happy. And it was like literally the desk would be like covered. You would think that there wasn't any granite or anything. It was just all sticky notes. It was unbelievable. So
I'm
sorry.
sure anybody that's
Feeling
gonna go ahead.
attacked
Greg.
right now. I have like 3 sticky notes on my
by everybody, I didn't mean you, Greg. I wasn't gonna cut you out, but I feel like everybody's had that. That's been a front desk agent has had that oh shit moment where you get a phone call back from the guest that called 15 minutes ago, and you wrote it right there on the pen and notepad. And it hasn't made its way to the house yet. He's on his way. So
The towels are fresh out of the dryer. Right there. That's warm for you.
Someone with the hair dryer trying to warm him up real quick.
I don't know where he is. I think he was just on his break a minute ago. He'll be up there in a moment.
Also, that's why you go to like ProSafe. That way you can know where your people are.
A little helpful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, if you're a technology provider and you're watching this conversation right now and you're like, okay, I'm a technology provider. I have a solution for hotels and I'm having a tough time getting that solution out there. How do they interface with you? Do they just try to track you down on LinkedIn, or what's the message that you're sending out to these vendors?
Yeah, I mean, transparently, like I said, we try to be a little bit exclusive, but yeah, I mean, we're always welcome to. I always like to sit down and have conversations, and I'll definitely help with giving some free advice to what I would think would be a way to get yourself in front of some hotels. And what your messaging you should look like. Like I said, I think everything ties back to the guest in some way. So how does your product tie back to that guest experience? How does it drive a better guest experience? And then, kind of help with, creating that go-to-market strategy with you. I'm happy to do that with any technology company. The company's easy. It's hoteltechconsultant.com. So that's the website as well. So, you can reach out to me. We can sit down and have a conversation about your product, try to identify, what it is that's your best in class piece that you can push and how it ties back to the guest and create a little bit of a strategy for you. I'm always happy to do that. I sit down pretty much with a new product every week, and most of those products we don't, bring on as partners. It's just
What's the most
it's
common
something.
reason do you think that you're going to be excluding? Like, I know that it's an exclusive selection because you want to make sure that you're recommending the best technology, but what's something that you're my brother's a teacher now. He's a flight instructor. So he says that every time that somebody is taking the controls, he can kind of tell what they're going to do before they do it, and he'll call them out on the mistake as soon as he sees it happen. What's something that you're noticing as a pattern from these technology companies where you're like, okay, that's not something that I really want to move forward with as a general rule?
I think sometimes companies maybe get a little bit outside of what they're great at and start doing a lot of things that they're potentially good at. And that starts creating issues is you start to lose your focus, lose your pitch, lose what's the thing that's special about you when you start doing things that are just outside of your scope, right? I think I run into that pretty often is where someone's telling me the 100 things their product does, but it probably doesn't do 100 things very well. It only does 5 of those things very well. So why are you pushing these 95 other things that your product can do? I think you should focus on the thing that works well. So that's one thing we talk about a lot in our conversations is finding the thing you do well and sticking to that thing. And then adding things later is definitely possible, but I definitely think you have to get your client base in place for that thing you do well before you can start doing other things and trying to do those things well. And sometimes you, as a founder, I mean, I understand. I mean, you're saying why is it that sometimes we keep exclusivity? I mean, truthfully, I mean, I would love to take on more products. It's from a time capacity standpoint as well. I can only juggle so much in my brain at any given moment. And, so the same has to be for others as well. Like, hey, maybe know your point of limitation. I think it took some time for me to realize that. I don't think I had that in maybe the beginning. And I think sometimes I have to give that advice to others is, hey, sometimes your limitation is, it's okay to have that limitation and stick to what you're good at. And let's start adding customers for what you're good at before you start adding other things that you're wanting to be good at, but you might not be there yet.
I feel like I
Makes
have to
sense.
throw in Philadelphia Eagles reference. The good old Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, keeping the main thing the main thing, and that couldn't be more true. Everything you just said, you're right. If you go off in a million different directions and you're focused on one thing, how are you pushing the ball forward? And how would that be a good product? I guess if I were in your shoes, Chris, I would also find difficulties in that as well. If there's no clear focus on what the main thing is at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and again, I think everybody wants to do more, and that's kind of the reasoning behind some of this. And sometimes they'll tack on like, oh, we're able to use, an open AI API to do this thing, but maybe that doesn't always tie back well to their original product, or, there's always these kind of things. So I think it's just move the needle for what you're good at, keep that thing going, and then you could start tacking on and adding other things. I know there's a million systems in hotels. That's the one piece that I think that's why people try to do more is, hey, let's limit the amount of systems that hotels have to use. But I think it's just the nature of hotels. At the end of the day, there's always going to be a lot of systems, and they're all gonna um, have to work in conjunction together. You
Yep.
you're basically every company's got. I mean, I run a dozen different technology products just to have my business operate, right? I mean, everyone's got to do it to function. But I think it becomes the nature of that function that people are trying to do more so they can do more for the property, but it doesn't always end up working out well, and sometimes creates an issue with onboarding, long-term usage, customer success, all those things that are important for a product too. Just because you put the product in place doesn't mean you're going to have it in place a year from now, truthfully, and sometimes doing too much is a reason for that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And in my mind, I'm thinking about how the more offerings that you're offering, the more places where something can go wrong in your solution, and you need to support that. So it can really easily become a house of cards moment where you got to keep your stack strong and secure as opposed to really broadening that out, and then one card falls and the rest of them are going to come down. If your core solution is overheating, and there's a problem with the physical device,
Mhm.
then it doesn't matter the 16 different functionalities you put up on top of it. People are going to be upset about the fact that your device doesn't work in the first place. And you got to keep it simple, like one sentence, this is what we do.
Mhm.
If it resonates clearly in somebody's mind, you're more likely to sell that product.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm curious what kind of things are moving the needles for you guys. I mean, in what thing, from a technology perspective, what are the things that are catching your eyes? What's making you guys excited? Outside of maybe what you're doing at ProSafe, Yaz and Terry, and yeah, for the both of you guys, what's kind of the stuff for you?
It's a great question. God,
Well, I've seen a bunch of different lists compiled of new and emerging technology and AI, and I would say at least I'd say a quarter to almost 30% is someone made the point earlier that it's voice, dealing with like more customer service related things, questions about the property, hours of operation, that sort of thing. And I'd say probably 25 to 30% were companies catering to that area. And I think we're at a point now where it's probably a good fit, right? I wouldn't say that I'd say there's less in the operations realm, and that that realm kind of excites me a little bit, because to your point, if we can, you know, first off, build upon, just being able to automatically automate these things, but even go further and bring in a little bit of AI action to be able to put to bed these mundane tasks, so you can focus on, to your point, the guest interactions, leaving that memorable, memory with those guests, and not having to worry about, do I have enough towels to get through the next 4 rooms that I'm cleaning, and that sort of thing.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's something I've been trying. I'll say I said I was kind of trying not to add anything new to the portfolio, but I've been wanting to add something on the operations side, for sure. That's where I worked in before,
Sure.
in the past. So, I mean, I know that back office operation automation is definitely a need. I mean, the amount of time spent on building housekeeping boards and room assignment, sending room assignments, or so I'm sorry, sending the room status back to the front desk, and all these things that just could just make the process so much easier. Why are we still printing out housekeeping assignments and bringing the board down to the front desk so they could update room status? Like simple
Yeah.
things like that.
It's crazy the things that I've experienced. I mean, it's hard enough to get scheduled reports and to have downtime reports printed automatically as opposed to manually. Like you're saying with housekeeping boards, having somebody physically walking over and showing you a paper, or even do outs, like having somebody running doing the do outs and then having to write it down and bring it down to the front desk. It slows down everything, the operation, the guest experience. People are waiting in line for a room that's already clean. So it's just mind blowing, some of these operations, the way that they're doing things, and they're losing out on revenue, service recovery wise, very heavily.
I think one of the things that excites me the most is the fact. So we've mentioned that the hotel industry moves a little slow, right? What excites me is that a lot of these big flags are finally upgrading from legacy PMS systems to PMS systems that can actually integrate with other things, right? So it opens up a whole new um operations journey, you could say. We often talk about the guest service side of things, right? Or the guest experience, excuse me. But operations is finally getting the backbone it needs so that you can add so many different things that will really push the ball forward on if because if your folks are happy in the workplace, then they're gonna, morale goes up, and then they're delivering a better guest experience. So I think it's all tied together. But the fact that hotels are actually upgrading their PMS systems, their back end sales systems, so that they can communicate with other systems, that's really what the hotel industry needed. And it's crazy because I started in hospitality in about 2005, and the needle hasn't moved that much further. It's been 20 years. It's crazy. And the same PMS system is just being phased out now. You know what I mean? The one that I was the most accustomed to. So, and then your newer PMS systems, they're now starting to go into the cloud, which opens up more things on the back end there as well that you can do if you're a technology company. So I think this is the golden time. If you are in technology, I think guest experience, again, operations, anything that can optimize, automate, streamline day to day for folks and deliver consistent experiences, right? Because if you're loyal to a brand, you're loyal to a brand because whenever you stay there, again, it all goes back to a bed and a bathroom and all that good stuff. But every single time you go and you have a good experience with one of those brands, that's what builds that loyalty. And I think that the systems are now getting to a point where you can, really shoot it out of a cannon at the end of the day, and it could start to, the backbone's there, and now all the bones are forming, and it's going to be fun to see where it all goes over the next little stretch for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that some of these newer PMS systems are, open API, those kind of things, making it easier for tech companies to integrate with them is a
Mhm.
huge thing because it just makes everything so much easier when the PMS is able to talk with the technology solution, especially if it's something that needs that touch point. I mean, it night and day from, well, when we're talking about your on premise and all these other solutions that are just so sometimes just so difficult to work with. It's great that we're kind of
Well,
moving in that direction.
and I agree. I mean, you need both parts, right? You need that PMS system that's able to be, utilized and have open APIs, and you need that tech there, that has the solution but needs the integration, and you need them both to come together, at the same time. Because if you have one without the other one, it can only be so useful.
Yeah,
Right.
when your PMS is from 1984, it doesn't really integrate. I'm
Yeah,
speaking
you
from
have to break keyboard.
experience. In homeless.
I'll equate the last 20 years of hospitality tech to the Twilight Zone. I mean, we've made it. We're here. It's been 20 years, and it's growth is year over year is only better and better, right? But yeah, I mean, it's time at the end of the day. There's a lot of companies that are stepping up, us included. We have a ton of things on our roadmap that we're hella excited about, and it's a pleasure to be working with other companies as well, to get to a point where we're making guest experiences better. We're helping hotels create memorable moments. That's special at the end of the day. And keeping the folks happy that work in those hotels. That's important too, right? So, that's all I got.
Totally. I mean, staff happiness is going to be super important, especially as we're talking about things being more automated and things being more um, getting some rid of some of these tasks. People are going to start. People have to feel that it's a good industry to work in still too. So, I mean, I think having that having that staff morale boost, having that piece makes it easier to then to do what we're all saying, the guest side as well. Happy staff usually means a happy guest. The happier if you have unhappy staff, you're probably not going to have too many guests who are happy with the staff, right? It's just how it works.
And it just opens up more room for a magical guest experience, because if you imagine just the perfectly integrated, like technologically sound hotel, you're talking about guest services that have way more time to make the magic happen, and solutions for the guest where they're all of the information that I was talking about earlier is right there at their fingertips, where they're always happy. They know exactly how long their towels are going to take to get there, or they have easy access to them from a kiosk, or however that solution happens. They're happy, they have what they need. The staff themselves are able to do some magic things by not having to utilize that computer as much. They can step away and really make that experience happen in a way that blows guests' minds, where they're like, wow, I had no idea that a hotel could do this, provide this much service, this many touch points. It just will completely revolutionize the industry as more and more hotels adopt more and more technologies that frees up more and more room for all of this to flourish. So it's just a really great time to be in hospitality, to be at the inception point of this revolution. And hopefully we can watch management companies decide that actually this is in our best interest. This will generate more revenue for us. And not only is it going to be worth it, but it's going to be way worth it for just a small investment. And it seems like a risk at first, but it can be a no-brainer in hindsight. So it's just a really cool time to be around in this industry.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, I'm in this industry because I love to travel. I mean, that's the reason I'm I'm here doing what I do. I just got back from a weekend trip in San Diego. I As much as I can travel, I try to be outside of my house if I can. So I'm excited about it from a guest side of it too, not just from being in the industry. I'm excited to be out on the road and traveling the world and seeing all this tech go into place. It's exciting to see where we're going to go.
I got a question for you, Chris. One of the companies I saw you work with, it's like your help. Is it AGA Hotels? How do you say it? AGA.
AGA, AGA, they go by both. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're a small hotel brand. So they're one of my non-tech solutions. I'm helping their internal technology stack, and then I also help from externally helping them try to grow a little bit as far as franchise development. So we do some outreach for them to help hopefully convert some properties over to their brand. They're mostly based here in Southern California, so we have a few properties here in Los Angeles, and we're just hoping to grow. So yeah, I'm working with them to upgrade what they have internally as far as their tech stack, and then we try to see what we could do to see if hotels would want to convert brands.
Nice. I mean, would you say that as a new brand, are they adopting anything in the tech side of things, like for the guest experience? Like, I'm sure you're helping with all that, but I'm saying, is there anything special you think that really like stands out that will help them in that growth, like type thing?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we're kind of building the value prop is kind of around individualized marketing for the properties. And then each property has hotel tech that's kind of based on what they need on property. But a lot of properties have AI guest text messaging platform where you can text a number, the AI responds back to you and answers your question, whether it's, what time's the pool close, what time's checkout. It can answer all those questions. And then it flags things for staff when it comes to their task related inquiries like, can I check in early, can I check out late, can you send some towels to the room, whatever it may be. It'll flag those messages for the staff, and then staff can actually respond to those messages back through the texting platform. So yeah,
Perfect.
we've added that in to allow them to speed up and reduce some of the frequently asked things that come in their door a lot, right? People asking about all those different questions, calling the front desk. They can use the text messaging system that automates some of that.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I saw that one. I know a lot of it is tech, but that one always like I wanted to ask you about for the longest time. So I appreciate you there.
Yeah, it's a cool company. I mean, the entrepreneur who's behind it, he's actually only 21 years old, so he's a young entrepreneur.
Oh yeah.
And they
Hell
have
yeah.
12, 15 hotels in that range. There are a couple are in development, so underneath their portfolio. So it's exciting. He's a smart kid, and he's growing a company at such a young age. I started a company right out of college at the same age too, so I kind of resonated with him. So I've been wanting to. My goal is to help that hotel brand get off the ground.
That's awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, just right there, you're mentioning how AI can help with the guest messaging side of things. Once
Mhm.
AI agents come into play and they're able to be trained off of custom data inputs, you can just say, provide the AI with today's linen counts, with today's occupancy and ADR and all of these pieces. If the AI is training off of that data on a day-to-day basis, then the AI will be able to start answering those guest questions too about if they can check in early. It'll just check availability, and the AI
Hmm.
agent will just be able to cross-reference and say yes or no. And if there's a friction point, then the AI can pass it off to a human operator. So as we see this progress, it'll just become cooler and cooler. An AI agent
Mhm.
might be able to say specifically like, "Hey, yes, we can send you towels." It'll send the message directly to the houseman as opposed to routing through the front desk, and that towel will go up to that room. So it's just cool, the prospect of what we're about to see come on the horizon. It's not just going to be generative AI messaging, but it's gonna grow far beyond that pretty rapidly from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely some tools that are already starting to do that. I've met with a couple of them, which is cool. Um, so it's exciting to see the direction like of how we'll be. But like I said, I think we're probably still at the automation stage before we get to
Yeah,
the AI stage. We
yeah,
gotta
it's hard enough to
automate
get
some of these
custom
tasks
reports.
before we
So
can start having AI take over all the things. But I think maybe we speed up quick and maybe things move faster. It just doesn't seem like the pace our industry moves, but we seem to let things test out in other places before we move them here, just because we're dealing with so many guests, right? And bad guest experience, usually means no repeat visit. So it's like we're all trying to stay out of our own way in some way, right? You don't want to be the one to make the mistake. So uh, it's interesting to see. I mean, we'll see how things go. I mean, but yeah, exactly what you're saying. I'm excited for all this stuff too. It's exciting to see how we'll take advantage of it all.
Well, Chris, thank you for walking this line for hotels. You're like the filter, where you're taking in exactly what these hotel technology products are saying they're offering, and you're essentially being that gatekeeper, that guardsman that's letting them through or recommending them as smart solutions for these hotels. And you're exactly right. There is a bit of risk that's involved because if it goes wrong, it can go very wrong, and those guests are not going to come back. But thanks for joining us on the episode. Really appreciated talking to you about this topic. It's something that I find very fascinating. Everybody is really interested in all the things that are changing soon. And I think that guests are better off with an understanding of what they can see in the years to come. So thanks for being on that cutting edge, brother.
I appreciate the time, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Anytime.